When I was a kid, around 16 years old, I met my childhood sweetheart, Marianne. I think back now on that first love feeling as something truly just spellbinding. It's the first time you find someone that you truly just want in your life forever and ever. The passion mixed with the peak of puberty just causes all kinds of emotions and head spinning. It's like an information overload that you're greedy for. Instead of being too much, you want it all. We met at a party, a typical house party of our youth. Some kids' parents would be away for the weekend, and they really feel like they can finally trust their pride and joy with the responsibility of having an empty house for a whole weekend for the first time. The rumors would start that some kid had an empty house for the weekend, and somehow this information would travel to attract kids you didn't even know existed to this house. So this was a pretty good party. The kid who was throwing the party was probably the most fucked up, so it had basically turned into a free-for-all where loads of randoms just somehow ended up there, and anything that wasn't nailed down was at least moved from its original spot. I spent most of my time in the kitchen. I was playing drinking games with shots and just having a laugh with a few of my mates. That's when Marianne and a few of her friends joined us. We basically hit it off straight away. I found it incredibly easy to flirt after 6 or 7 shots of vodka. I think it was the whole not caring if the line landed thing. We had a good laugh, exchanged numbers, and after a few awkward sober meetups, she actually wanted to be my girlfriend a few weeks later. We fell head over heels. Our friends became forgotten as we spent every free waking moment together. We'd just lie down at night, awake, and just talk about the most random and sometimes quite deep stuff. Well, deep for kids anyway. It was during one of these nights, lying down in my bedroom with the lights off and the curtains open to allow the full bright moon to illuminate the room, we were captured in each other's arms, when she decided to bring it up. She asked me what I thought happened to us when we die. This was a tough one, and I remember thinking to myself at the time that I wasn't 100% sure if she was religious or something, so I didn't want to offend her by giving my thought of it at the time, which was basically nothing. That's it, game over. I thought about it for a second, and then told her, I don't know, but this can't be all there is. This, I thought, was a pretty safe answer. I know there's more, she told me. I didn't know what she meant by this, so I asked her if she meant in a religious way, to which she replied no. She went on to say that when she was a child, she would spend a lot of time with her grandma. She said that she loved her grandma, but she was into some pretty weird stuff. She said her grandma always laughed when she'd compare her to a real-life witch. It was their little joke. Her grandma didn't look like a witch, with a long warded nose and the black hat with a broom, but it was her home and what she did in her spare time that earned the comparisons. She said that her grandma's home was decorated with weird symbols, sticks stitched together placed on every table, shrunken heads hung up on the walls. She had a black cat, and she was a chemist by profession, so she'd always show Marianne cool experiments and things like that. Her home reminded Marianne of the fairy tales she'd read about cottages in the woods. It basically was one. They were neighbors, but they were pretty spread apart, and her home was 2 minutes from a busy road. But to Marianne as a child, it felt like escaping to a different world every time she stayed at her grandma's. Marianne said there was one weekend she went to her grandma's to stay over, and she was really upset. She thinks that she was around 7 and somehow had just learned about death. Some kid that had been bullying her at school had told her that she will die one day and be eaten by worms, and this just freaked her out and left her scared. She didn't realize at the time that everybody did die and that there was nothing anybody could do about it. Her grandma sat her down and gave her the warm smile she would always give her when she was feeling down. She then told her that she knew she wouldn't die and become worm food, that she knows when our bodies die, we live on in a better place. Marianne asked her grandma how she knew this, and her grandma explained to her that she too was once afraid of dying when she was younger. When she got married to her grandfather, she was still frightened, so she brought it up to him. Then, in their love, they made an agreement to never leave each other. They promised that when one of their bodies passes away, their spirit will let them know everything is fine with a sign. They thought of a funny word that the two of them would recognize, and they decided on Bagpuss. This meant that if either of them would pass away, they would tell them Bagpuss, to let the other know that everything is okay. Her grandma then explained to her that every so often, ever since her grandfather had passed, she'd saw the word Bagpuss appear, just like magic. It appeared in the clouds, perfectly visible on the day of his funeral. It appeared in paintings she looked at and food she ate. It would appear completely randomly in the strangest of places, and she knew it was him letting her know that he's in a good place and that he's fine. He'd even whisper it into her ear at night if she ever felt worried or alone. Then her grandma told her that when she passes, she'll let Marianne know it's all okay with the same word, Bagpuss. Sure enough, a few years passed and her grandmother passed away. and Marianne found the word Bagpuss appearing sporadically in the strangest of places. She told me this is how she knew. At that point, I don't think my face was good at convincing her I believed this, or thought that this was anything other than a bit of a coincidence or wishful thinking, coupled with really trying to look for it in things. I think she could tell this, and that's when she told me that even if I don't believe it now, let's just agree that if either one of us die and there's a way to contact each other from the afterlife, that we would use the word Bagpuss as a message to show everything was okay. I agreed, but she said it wasn't enough. It wouldn't mean anything unless we make it unbreakable. She told me that what she and her grandmother did was cut the palm of their hand slightly with a knife and shake on it with blood. She said it made it more sacred and everlasting. I kind of refused at first. I didn't see the point, and this resulted in our first actual row. It was strange. I'd never argued with a girlfriend before, and I'd always thought I'd be able to avoid that when I was in my youth. But suddenly I realized this is how easy and quickly they can start. We fought for a bit before she began sobbing. I could see this was a big deal for her, and it was a tiny price to pay to make her happy. So I agreed. We got a knife, I let her cut our hands, and then we clasped them together, saying, Bagpuss. I'll never forget her reaction. I mean, she seemed happy, but this was overjoyed, ecstatic even. After that, though, we kind of just hugged, and things seemed to settle down as we drifted off to sleep. The breakup was swiftly after this. It was strange, too. I'd never met her dad before, but he approached me one day after school, and I thought I was going to get my head kicked in for sleeping with his daughter. He instructed me to come speak to him away from my mates. They were a bit hesitant at first, but he reassured us that he just wanted to talk, and that he came in peace. When alone, he told me in no uncertain terms to delete Marianne's number and not bother looking her up. He told me that they were moving away and that it was for the best. He noticed my bandaged up hand from the knife wound. He kind of just stared at it for a bit, perhaps because Marianne had an identical one. Then he looked at me with the strangest look. It was as if he felt sorry for me. A look of pity is the best way to describe it, really. He then opened his mouth, and I mentally prepared to answer to the inevitable question of what happened, but instead, what he said completely threw me off. He just said, "I'm sorry, son," and then walked off. I don't understand. Perhaps Marianne told him about the cutting, and he thought she forcefully did it or something? It was strange. Anyway, cut to a few weeks ago. I'm a grown-ass man now. I'd like to say I've had many girlfriends since, but that would just be lying. I was on Facebook when I got a message. I recognized the person. It had been years, but apart from the gray, it still looked like Marianne's father. I was shocked to be informed that Marianne had passed away, and even though this was his daughter, he, after all these years later, ended the message with, "Rupert, I am terribly sorry." This was really odd. It had been years since we'd last saw each other, as we both well knew. I just replied that I was sorry to hear that and that I offered my condolences, and I thought that would be that. I felt sad about it, but it had been so long since I'd even thought about her. Then that night, my girlfriend of the time decided to break up with me. In one of these texts, she told me to pack my Bagpuss. This was what really brought those memories flooding back. Suddenly I was reminded of that night, the scar still in the palm of my hand. Of course this was just autocorrect, right? A simple mistake, right? I'd hoped so, but then there was the morning a few days later. I'd had a shower, and when I got out, right there in the fogged up mirror, as clear as anything, the word Bagpuss. Now I can explain the text message as a strange but not impossible autocorrect. This though? This I can't explain. I'm ashamed to admit I ran out of my house, barely even fully clothed, and I sat in my car. I had to call in sick to work because it took me so long to find the bravery to run back in and get my shoes, brush my teeth, etc. It seems like everywhere I fucking go now, though, I'm seeing this word appear. It was the license plate of the car that crashed into me while I was parked waiting at the stoplight. It was unbelievably the name of the psychiatrist I called to get help, Dr. Bagpuss. I mean, come on. It feels like the whole world is suddenly out to fucking creep me out. It's appearing fucking everywhere, and I can't get it to stop. This has been driving me nuts the past couple weeks, I have to be completely honest. It was nothing compared to my most recent one, though. I woke up to texts from everybody I knew this morning. Every single one of them, from friends and family, all said variations of, "What is Bagpuss?" I of course asked them what they were talking about and what they meant. I mean, I haven't told anybody about this shit apart from the professionals. Even then, I've toned it back and not let it be known just how bad this is. I'm terrified of getting that look, you know? The one you see in movies where things keep happening to our main character, but everybody just gives them that That look of pity, a look of judgment. I got a text back from a friend of mine that told me to check my Facebook. I looked at my Facebook and found a video that I'd posted. I clicked play and was immediately frozen over with fear. It was a pitch black clip posted on my Facebook from my phone.
Bagpuss. 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 Bagpuss.
I don't have any fucking recollection of this. Was it me? It doesn't sound like fucking me, but who the fuck else could it be? I've never even sleepwalked in my fucking life. Certainly never done anything as strange as this. I just don't understand it, and it's fucking creeping me out. I can't tell if I'm going crazy or what. I'm fucking losing my grip on reality, man. Then to make matters worse, Marianne's fucking dad left a comment on the video saying, "Won't be long now, son. Better just make sure you make the decision yourself while it's still in your hands." Like, what the fuck does that mean? Can he just fuck off? I just needed somewhere to vent all this shit, man. I'm fucking spooked beyond belief. I'm fucking crying my eyes out. Fuck Bagpuss, fuck Bagpuss, fuck Bagpuss!